Welcome back to the School of Whispers podcast season 5. Welcome if you're brand new. Okay, topic today is Dharmic Dating. So, brief overview. Last September, I got into the dating world and my candle to the dating world shined bright and went out real quick. So, I'll give you all the details into the beginning to the end and why I'm done for now. There's so much to say. There's so much that I say on the episode, so we'll get right into the highlights. Well, first, I give a little life update. I moved to Costa Rica in January, so I got new home, new job, new life. I talk about what is Dharmic dating and how do you know when you're ready to start dating, especially after, for me, it was a divorce. It was, massive breakup, a lot of heartbreak. I talk about the madness of dating apps and the rules to dating. I talk about dating rituals that I took part in that just worked way better than I ever could have anticipated working. And I give a warning behind the whole act of manifestation, just in general. I share a few funny dating moments, and I talk about dating with non-attachment and how to be sure that you're not using non-attachment as an excuse to bypass. The last topic I'll get into is talking about the difference between a sovereign and a safe woman versus a violated woman. And the difference is a woman who follows her heart and a woman who listens to her mind. I do talk about subjects such as rape, so it's towards the last 10 to 15 minutes. So yeah, just so you're aware, it's really good to be back in this season. I'm now taking remote work, so if you want to check out the show notes, you'll find my website, my services, all that good stuff. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the School of Whispers podcast. This is your host, Stephanie. I'm a licensed acupuncture physician and herbalist with a background in psychology, health sciences, and exercise physiology. Within my own spiritual awakening, I found myself learning pivotal lessons when I got myself to be in silence. Within that silence, the whispers came through. This is my sacred space of vulnerable storytelling where my guests and I share about the magic that comes from a life of following these whispers. I'm grateful you made it here, and I hope this show inspires you to live a life of following your own whispers. Let's get into the show. All right. Welcome to me to season 5. I don't know if this episode will be the first one, but it's the first one I've recorded since November of 2025. And it is April 8th, 2026. I'm like, eat. I feel my joy leaking over here. Okay, so quick State of the Union. I moved to Costa Rica in January to work at a retreat center called Root and Wisdom, where they serve the wonderful magical herb that is iboga. And it's been, so I was hired as a facilitator as well as I do my Chinese medicine, like acupuncture and whatnot. And wow, what a learning curve. It's been like just the highest honor to be a part of something that creates so much change, and to also I mean the vibration of the two clearly go hand in hand, because we're also on this land that is really something special, something different. It's its own sort of medicine. It has its own personality. The wind speaks to you. The birds, they know exactly what's going on, and everything feels like I mean, with Mother Nature, like her energy is so strong here. It feels like, yeah, someone's watching you and conversing with you. And it's really pushed me to change in a lot of ways, which I will get into on a different podcast because I want to, I don't want to waste too much, not waste, but I don't want to spend too much time here because I really want to get into our topic. But yeah, I'll just say just huge fundamental changes, really foundational stuff that I've become aware of here. And also like just the nature of working for, in service for Iboga, of Iboga. I mean, if you're not familiar with Iboga, I'm actually going to put an episode out with Troy this season, Troy Valencia, who runs Root and Wisdom, and he's the Iboga provider. He and his wife, Jolie, run it. He will do a whole episode on Iboga for you guys. So I'm not going to get into all of that here, but I'll say it's a root that is, it gets to the root. It's the hunter of truth. For me, for many, I would argue all, perhaps, it makes it so freaking obvious what you're running from, what your true nature is. And I mean, that kind of feels like the two, what you're running from and what your true nature is. And so from that place, you can let go of what is no longer serving you, and you can call in and really literally, like, rather than call in, you can just change your entire mind, which is in turn going to change your whole life. And so all that being said, Troy and Joe went to the States. They're other than the couple who own this land, they're the only ones on this land once retreats ended who live here with me. And they left to the States about 2 weeks ago. And I decided to do my own version of an Iboga dieta. So what that entails is no Wi-Fi, essentially, and eating Iboga every day. Yesterday was my second day, and I decided to do like 3.5 to 4 grams. Yeah, like 3.5 grams. Ooh, it really got me. It really, yeah. For context, 0.3 to 1 is a micro. Anything that's got a palpable physiological as well as neuropsychological, I would say, or psychospiritual difference, where you feel a tangible shift, is considered a macro dose. And a ceremonial dose well, I'll speak for myself personally, to really be in it. It could go from, my first time was, I think, 6 grams. And then my most recent Iboga ceremony, which was in February of this year, it was like maybe around like 15 to 18 grams. And then when I was in Africa, that was probably like, I wasn't counting, but I was around like 50 grams. That was like my initiation dose, just to give you a general context. So yeah, took 3 grams yesterday. It really brought me into, I would say, a deep meditation, like a ceremonial space, not like fully in it, but yeah, in a space where I could journey with myself in a very short, condensed amount of time. So yeah, I'm on the other side of it. Today's day 3. So a lot of awarenesses, a lot of clarity, a lot of silence in my mind. And why am I doing this? I am doing it because I have the big question of, who am I when I am at my truest nature? Without distractions, without other people. I've gone to a place like this before years ago. I did a dieta in Peru, which is like a time of isolation. But that was my really first time doing something like this. There was so much to let go of, and I've changed. That was 2023. It's 3 years later, and I've changed drastically. And so with the help of Iboga, it brings a lot to your awareness, as I've said. So when I engage in practices, I get to go past the awareness of my mind and into the awareness from somewhere else. So I'm going to leave it at that. And we will get into that topic at a later point in this season when I'm on the other side of this. So let's get into Dharmic dating. So I actually started calling this duty dating because of a patient of mine last year. She presented the word where it's kind of like, you know, you're doing your duty. You're dating, you're learning lessons, you're, you know, making your rounds in order to you do your part, like kiss the frogs to find the prince. But I was actually on a date with a guy who presented the idea of Dharmic dating. And it resonates so much more because the truth was when I started dating last year, I wasn't kissing frogs to find my prince at all. The whole motive was to find myself, to learn about myself. It wasn't to find my person. Of course, I was open to the possibility, but I kind of just knew that, I mean, I had this whole move to Costa Rica ahead of me. And yeah, I just knew that I wasn't going to meet my person. I hesitate to say that because it's like, how do you know? It's like, well, you know, because my heart told me. My heart was very clear. And so Dharmic dating is dating for the purpose of getting to know yourself, getting to know where you're attached, where you may still be latched into suffering, where you may be averse to certain experiences within yourself. Really, that's what it all comes down to. Everything's an experience within. And to clear away some karma, because man, I cleared away a lot of karma with these men. So to give you a little background on myself, if you're not familiar, I got married at 24. I'm like, how do I just go into this topic with the utmost respect while also being true to my nature, which is to be a bit irreverent and inappropriate? I mean, it's my podcast. We're going to do both. I was a horny, unconscious little slut up into the moment I met my now ex-husband. It was a one-night stand that didn't turn into a one-night stand. And I had been dating this guy starting in high school and into my junior year of college, right before leaving for New Zealand. I was leaving in February, and I realized in like November that I was done. And I broke up with that boyfriend, went to New Zealand, had, you know how it goes when a girl like was dating all through high school and then she's in college, where especially where I studied abroad in New Zealand, it was like it was Hedonville. It was, if anyone's ever been to Dunedin, you know, like it's just crazy. And I was pretty fucking crazy. And I really just, the culture I grew up with, and I guess the culture I indoctrinated myself within too, was just kind of treating sex as a means to get off, or a means of gaining some sort of power over someone. I wasn't fully conscious of that's what I was doing. But in hindsight and reflection, that's there's so much I could say to that, and I'm sure I'll touch on it a little bit more. But yeah, that's where I was at. I'd never been taken out on a proper date, and I just had this kind of warped view on intimacy and what it means to be like quote unquote sexually liberated. So yeah, I was either trying to gain something that I felt like I didn't have, which included like an orgasm, just like, oh, he's hot, I'm horny, let's go. Not the best way. Let me, in case there's any young people listening, not the best way to go about dating and sex and romantic partners and any of that. I mean, it was my path. It was my karma, my dharma. Like, it was my path. It was perfect how it unfolded. I would never take any of it back. I have zero regrets because I needed to learn. Like, this is what my mind and my soul needed to go through to be where I'm at now. Okay, so yeah, met my now ex-husband when I was studying abroad. We did a couple of years of long distance. We eventually got married when I was 24, and we were married for 5 years. To be honest with you, I still was very I didn't realize. I thought I was pretty like awake when it came to my sexuality, especially towards the end, but I wasn't. I really wasn't. And I, again, was really in this consciousness of using it as a means to just intimacy in general, to gain something to fill an empty space that I've had inside of me, that I believed was inside of me. Again, completely unconscious. I really want to like hone in on this, because if it were conscious and I still engaged in that, I'm going to use my mind to label, that would be kind of fucked up. And I would not feel great about that. And there are times where I have had just an inkling of awareness, and I immediately felt like shit after, and I thought, wow, I don't want to do that again. But yeah, to give myself grace here, as I'm going to be listening back to this podcast, just a reminder, Steffi, you were ignorant. I didn't know any better. And having shame and guilt around ignorance, which is the condition that we're all born into. I never had somebody have a straight up conversation with me about intimacy and self-esteem and loving yourself. Really what it boils down to is loving yourself and appreciating yourself. I didn't really have the language or any conversations around that. So I just didn't know any better. Okay, so then my ex, he got into addiction to these drinks called Feel Free during the last 2.5 years of our marriage. And it eventually, got so bad I had to leave him. And there were other, reasons I had to leave him. There was a lesson, a karma that needed to be played out. It was my dharma to love him, and it was my dharma to leave him. And so I was heartbroken. Oh my God. I was so devastated up until probably, I still have that heartbreak come through. I still have that pain, that anger, that sadness. I did mushrooms a couple of days ago, and I felt that grief come up. Granted, it lasted for like 3 minutes versus lasting for days, literally days. There were days where I cried every single day. But yeah, it was very much there, and I really had a turning point after I went to Africa for my initiation into the Bwiti. And yeah, I would say the one of many things that are relevant, but the one thing that feels very relevant to my path of Dharmic dating is when I was out in Africa, I had this awareness during my Big Iboga ceremony. As I felt the eyes of the elders, the male elders of the Bwiti looking at me, I became aware of this terror. Hold on, I think there might be an animal in my house. Nope, just the wind. So where I live is up on a mountain, and the weather is just freaking gorgeous, and my house is all sliding doors and windows, so I just have them open all day, which, yeah, opens the space to little critters sometimes. But anyways, terror, yes. Just this deep rooted fear for my life. When feeling male eyes on me, and I realized that my mind was telling me a story that if a man is looking at me, then he wants something from me sexually. And it stems from some childhood trauma and that I became aware of. And I just realized, like, wow, this doesn't serve me at all anymore. And so I let it go. And so coming back from Africa, I mean, took just a while to just land on my feet back in the States. And that was July, August, and then literally September 1st. So during that time, I think maybe right before Africa, I downloaded a dating app, and I hated it. It was Hinge. It was horrible. It was just overstimulation, information overload. So if you're not familiar with dating apps, Hinge is like I would say, maybe I haven't been on Tinder, so I'm speaking from ignorance here, but I would say Tinder's the Walmart, Hinge is the Publix, and then for me, Bumble was the Whole Foods. If you're catching up what I'm putting down. So there was just a lot more noise. How I would also put it is, like, Hinge was super noisy, and that to me is less desirable and less quality. Whereas Bumble, there's less noise going on. What I mean by that is, with Hinge, you make up your profile and then you go through people's profiles and you swipe one way or the other. I forget which way, if you like them and you want to make a connection. But then you also can look at people who have liked you, which is, if you're a woman, that's the easier way to go about things, because the freaking volume of people that like your profile, actually, as I say this, is it the better way? I don't know. But the freaking sheer volume of people liking your profile is just too much. It'd be like, I'd come home from work and it'd be like 70 plus profiles to go through. And it just stole so much of my attention and time. And I was like, fuck this. So deleted the app. And then I come back from Africa and I have this, it's like, it was the week of my 30th birthday. And I had this little, like, I feel like I kind of do want to do this. And so I toyed with the idea. I spoke to my coworkers about it. And there was this one moment to answer the question, how do you know when you're ready? And the short answer is, you're never really that ready. I guess when you're ready, when you're no longer like sobbing every day over your ex, in my scenario here. But yeah, let me tell you the moment I knew I was ready. Well, this woman who worked at my office, she was a nurse practitioner who also practices muscle testing, like this energy work program through muscle testing and all that stuff. And I'm going to be honest with you, I used to really, really resonate with all of that. The muscle testing, the entities, the trapped emotions, somebody, helping you, bringing it out and telling you what's going on. And now I think it's useful depending on where somebody is in a phase of life, but especially dependent on the practitioner. I think when it comes to energy work, there's so many people who are unconsciously operating from a place of ego, and they get really high off of that feeling of helping people and being seen and being special and being an authority, and they will insert themselves as a in a position of power, and as if, they know what's best. And in some cases, they'll insert themselves where their gifts are not warranted. And I do think that there are practitioners that are in integrity, and there's phases of life where it's really valuable, and that practitioner probably encourages people to follow their heart. But yeah, at this point in my life, I'm not bypassing what I already know to be true. I'm not outsourcing information to someone who thinks that they're an authority on my life. I am very much in the school of following my heart and not giving my power away. But this woman, she was like, "Oh, I heard you're starting to date." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about it." And she goes, "Well, reach out your hand." And I was like, "Okay." And she goes, "Okay, is Stephanie able to decipher whether a man is good for her or not? Basically, like, is Stephanie ready to date?" And she pressed down my arm, and my arm went down. Guys, my arm went down. And she looks at me and goes, "You're not ready." And I just said, "Okay." And I just sat with that, and I was like, well, first off, what a load of bullshit. Zero consent. And like her trying to instill beliefs into my system. Like, no, thank you. But to give a moment to play with giving that belief power. Of course, I don't know how to decipher if a man is right for me or not. I haven't even practiced dating. I haven't talked to any men since my divorce. I did have one fling, very, very short fling with a guy, but it was like it wasn't dating. It was hard. It was an old paradigm. And I was so aware that I was operating within a paradigm, especially like after Africa, that, had a lot of baggage to it that was just very unconscious. And I was like, okay, like, yeah. And that's actually what made me decide, okay, it's time to date. It's time as a conscious adult. It's time to meet some men. It's time to talk to some men and learn about myself through the process. So pretty sure that week, at some point that week, I decided to set up a Bumble profile. Gave Bumble a shot. And so what Bumble is the woman makes the first move. I guess Bumble's for professionals, I suppose. So you have to pay for certain things, like see who likes you, blah, blah, blah. I didn't do any. I think at one point when I was like over the app, I decided it's like the app knows, they know when you're not using it and you're not into it. So they're like, "Hey, for $3, you can see who's liked you." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck it." And for 24 hours. But yeah, I was about to move. I was really over the whole thing pretty quickly. But yeah, set up my profile and started swiping, I think. Or I think I waited a little bit before I actually started the swipe. I was really scared. I was over fucking whelmed. I felt my heart hammering in my chest, my tummy doing flips just by opening a freaking app. So just to like give you guys an idea of how big this was for me and how it really felt, like a big transition. Like, it felt important. So let's pause here and talk a bit about people's opinions on setting up profiles as well as rules to dating. So I'm a very heart on my sleeve kind of gal. I'm very vocal about what's going on in my life. If you ask me how am I doing, if I'm not good, I'm not gonna like be like, "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" Like, I'll let you know how I'm doing. So I was telling a lot of people, "Yep, I'm on a dating app, like, how you doing stuff? Oh, signed up for dating apps. It's really, it's nerve-wracking, but I'm doing it." And just at that phase within dating, people had a lot of opinions. I had a lot of people who wanted to look at my dating profile, and everybody has their own style. So I had people wanting me to sort of adopt their style They were telling me that I needed to put on more sexy photos, or that I was too honest with my answers. I wasn't clever or coy enough, demure enough. Just a lot of opinions. And if I was going to do it their way, then I was going to attract men that would go for them. So quickly I realized, like, after trying on a couple of, I guess, other people's personality, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't want to date men that they would want. I want to date like a very specific breed of man. And to be honest, I don't have a ton of super conscious dating people in my, I don't think I really had any conscious people dating around me. Everybody was either already in a relationship or super unconscious, dating around and struggling, or married. And that just brings me to, I think, the most important thing. If you're somebody who is in my position, or just kind of new to the whole thing, and looking for other people's takes and opinions and rules. Okay, the rules are, you create your own rules, and don't take advice from people who you don't want to be like. Also, you can consider other people's opinions and rules and advice, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Their ideas of how you should and shouldn't be does not matter, because dating, I learned, is you're going to be like, some of you will be like, duh, and some of you will be like, huh, interesting take. Dating's a very energetic sort of process. Whatever energy you're putting out, especially deep unconscious energy, is what you're going to attract. And that brings me to, I think, something that was really valuable for me as a woman who was available and wanting to attract men. I became a freaking magnet. And like, I'm really not hyperbolizing this, because if you talk to anybody that was around me during that time, if we went out or whatever, like, men just flocked to me. It was the energy I was putting out, but that in itself comes with caveats, because when it's easy to just attract men, when you become magnetic, all of a sudden it's not about like finding somebody, it's about being able to decipher and keep yourself detached from their attachment to you, to their excitement over meeting you and like seeing them for who they really are, appreciating them, then realizing, oh fuck, you're not for me, and being willing to hurt them because of it. It's just it was a whole thing. It was really fun, but also really tough at times. Also, my friends would ask me, like, how are you calling in so many like great guys? I really was meeting like really great, like going on dates with these awesome guys, and also being approached out at events or out, with my friends. I was being approached by a lot of guys. But I definitely, when it came to like going out dancing, like I recently went to this festival where I was just hoed up the whole time, just in these slutty, awesome little outfits. That was not a place where I would want to meet a man. It's not a place where I would want to meet my life partner, to be honest, because if I'm dressed like that, I'm attracting a certain type of energy. I'm very aware of that. And sure, I enjoy attention, but I'm not getting dressed like that for the sake of calling in that kind of male partnership or male attention or situationship, or, like, I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down. You're understanding what I'm saying here. So let's get witchy for a second here. During that time, all of last year, I was learning about the goddess Lalita Tripura Sundari. And Lalita, she's basically kind of like the overlord goddess of Hinduism. At least that's from what I understand, the course I took. She's creation. Or rather, she is that step before creation, the existence of energy. And from Lalita came Shiva and Shakti. It's like this energy of bringing the unmanifest to the manifest. And it's really about, what are your desires from your heart? What are your truest desires when you get rid of attachment and aversion? What does your heart truly desire? And through that course, we would sing mantras and do visualizations, and shit would just manifest. I've manifested money, opportunities, like things happen very quickly when I would do these mantras. And so I kind of turned it into rituals around, what kind of men do I want to meet? And I would get really specific, because at one point I called in this perfect dude, but I forgot to say I need him to be available. Not only emotionally available, but actually not with somebody else. Because like this guy dropped into my lap, but he was married. Like he was perfect and married. So a big fucking no, obviously. And so, yeah, I would get very specific about the guys that I wanted to meet and the lessons that I wanted to learn about myself. And there was also just this vibrance, this essence that came with doing these mantras. My mind would go blank. I would go into this bliss state, because what I found is the key to calling something in is to let it go. And that in itself is a journey to bliss, that cosmic, orgasmic essence sort of energy. And it really made me magnetic. Oh my God, actually a story. I was out with my friend, and she's kind of on the shy side, and she's gorgeous. And she was making eyes at this guy all night. She was just like, 70, he won't look at me. He's talking to those girls. And I was telling her about my mantras and my rituals. And I was like, okay, I will do my ritual for you. I'll do my little mantras for you. But then, you got to like take the opportunity. And she was like, okay. So I do my little thing. And I kid you not, it was like a hand grabbed his head and spun him around to look at us. And during that time, my friend, who didn't believe in my whole shtick, honestly, I didn't really fully think it was going to happen, but she was looking all around and going, where is he? Where is he? And I was like, dude, he's looking at us right now. And I didn't want to point because he was looking, but I was explaining where he is. And by the time she brought her eyes to his, he had already turned back around. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, that's on you, which brought us into a conversation about unconscious and conscious resistance. And that was a part of my rituals. If I felt a resistance sort of energy around calling in a certain caliber of man, I would just embrace that emotion so that I can move past it. And I would practice something called the middle way and work on my beliefs around it. But yeah, the reason why I don't want to get much more into this is because it was my personal ritual. You'll have to create yours if this is what you want to do. But also, manifestation is kind of a trap, because it's a product of the mind. Like visualize it. What do you specifically want? What works? What doesn't work? Make a chart, make a table, whatever. That is using your mind. And so, when we're truly trying to work with what we need, we flow with the river of spirit. And some of the things I called in actually brought in new challenges and new areas where I didn't realize I was suffering and I was holding on to, which in hindsight is perfect, right? That's exactly what I was looking for within dating. But I just remember being like, shit, be careful what you wish for, huh? But the last thing that feels worth mentioning about manifestations, just to make sure if you're going to do it, put at the utmost priority the highest good for everyone involved. So yeah, that was probably one of the most important things. So I'll tell you my rules that I put together for dating, because yeah, I eventually started dating like a freaking maniac. I was going on a date every week with at least one guy. I remember one time, 3 or 4 days, I went on 3 dates. That was way too much for me. So that was one of my rules, was no more than 1 to 2 guys a week. Because it's a lot of energy to take on and to put out. And I work with people. I was an acupuncturist at a clinic. So seeing 8 to 12 people a day, it was just a lot of energy to expend. My other rule, was don't take advice from people who I don't want to be like. And what do you know? The people whose opinions I really, really valued didn't try to advise me at all. They helped me explore the feelings that I was having and really guided me towards listening to my heart. So that's probably, I would say, my number one rule is listen to my heart. And it was a rule that I did not follow. And we'll get into that. So my other rule was no sex first date. For some of you, you might be like, girl, you crazy. Why does that even have to be a rule? It just has to be. Okay, guys. Yeah, no sex first date, which I realized entailed don't go back to the guy's place. Don't bring them back to your place. Meet them somewhere public. My first date. Oh my God, this guy, he did this whole game, you want to talk about playing with people. He did this whole thing where he was like, and he's done this before. So he was like, oh, I live downtown. We can walk to this really cool bar. It was a really cool bar. It was like a rooftop. And of course, there was nobody else there. Like there was a pool. It was really beautiful. He's like, you can park at my place. So finding his place was pretty difficult. And I called him. I was like, hey, I'm lost. And so he guided me. And he came out. He was like, oh, I'll be the guy in the street shirtless. And I was thinking, why is he shirtless? Why am I meeting a shirtless man? And so I park my car and come out, and he comes in for a hug, of course. Of course, he has a really great body. And yeah, he was like, oh, we'll just go back into my place and I'll get a shirt on. And I was like, why don't you have a shirt on now? I think before he even said that, I was like, so is this what you're wearing for our date? And he was like, oh no, we'll go back into my place. And I was just like, my heart was like, no, you don't need to go back to that guy's place. But it was my first date. I was thrown off, all the emotions. So we go back to his place. He gives me a tour of his shack. Hi, Arlo. It's my cat. Yeah, his hoarded shack. He put on lights. He put on music. Asked me if I wanted anything to drink. And I was like, yeah, I would love to go to the bar and get a drink. That, the one that we agreed to go to. Oh, yeah, of course. And then at one point he goes, and okay, so on my way to the date, I was, of course, nervous. And I was like, Steph, this is no different from your job. You walk in, you introduce yourself to a stranger, you ask them questions about themselves, you listen, you share, you laugh. It's a good time. And then I laughed to myself. I was on my car to said date. Oh, but usually at work setting, I'll tell the person to take their shirt off and then I'll rub lotion on their back. And I laughed and I was like, okay, well, that's not going to be part of it. Well. Guess what? Shirtless guy was like, actually, I was wondering if you could rub some aloe on my back. I was playing pickleball all day today and my back is burnt. And I just was thinking, you've got to be fucking kidding me. You know what? Fine. I'm going to get aloe on your back. You're going to put a shirt on and we'll go on the date. And that's what happened. And yeah, like when I told my coworker about it, she was like, Stephanie, no, you don't go into a stranger's house. Stranger danger. And she's 100% right. Yeah, I just, unless you really trust the guy, you want to have sex with them, whatever, you do you. But if you're still unsure, don't go to their place. No homes, no bedrooms, no removal of clothing unless you're at the beach. Which brings me to a really important, really simple rule. If it's not a fuck yeah, it's a fuck no. Sometimes a maybe is a no. Enthusiastic, yes. Always and only. Okay. Another rule. Well, I mean, this one really isn't that Dharmic, like big life change. It's just something I learned about myself that I don't know, it feels worth mentioning here. If for me, again, this is for me, if the guy isn't planning the whole thing, I like to sit back and be taken on an experience. I love a man who takes initiative and sets up the date and tells me I made a reservation here at this time. We're going to do this, that. There's this one guy. What are we going to name him? We're going to name him Jay. We're going to name him Jay. Okay, now I know why I had to mention this rule, because we got to talk about Jay. I learned a lot from Jay. I went on a lot of first dates. I went on a few second dates, and I only went on consistent dates with this one guy who was awesome. And we went on like 5 or 6 dates. And he set up most of them. I set up a few, but yeah, it was just a lot of fun. But the big take home lesson that I realized with Jay was understanding how I was engaging in this power dynamic. I fucking realized that I will make myself so outrageously likable and pleasant just so that I could have this sense of safety. And really, it was so that it was through having an upper hand on someone that I believed that I was safe. It's funny when you say these things out loud, it just sounds outrageous, but yeah, it was a story my mind was telling me. And with him, I often could kind of feel like I didn't really have an upper hand because I couldn't really read him. And, while we enjoyed each other, there was always this wall, I guess, between us. And yeah, when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, I know that at my core, at my essence, I am truly wonderful and a pleasure to be around. And so when I don't operate from this power dynamic, I can actually just be pleasant and wonderful because that's who I am. I don't have to fucking try. But man, to get to that place was super gritty and uncomfortable. And then I think the most important rule of mine that just kept the whole experience not only fun, but dharmic and expansive. And it was practicing non-attachment. So I tend to see the best in people. I sometimes can create a fantasy. It makes me the world's best hype girl, but it can create a delusion, an illusion. And so while I know that I have this enthusiasm, this tendency towards enthusiasm, I wanted to stay hyper aware of the importance of detaching myself from who I think people are. I used to think it was such a beautiful thing to believe in somebody, right? It's kind of the narrative in our culture. I believe in you, but that's not seeing them. I'll never believe in someone again because that will completely delude me from seeing who's right in front of me. And that fullness of somebody is worthy of being seen versus created a fantasy. Like, for example, I so believed in my ex. Somebody asked me recently why I stayed with him for so long. And it's because I believed in him. I created a fantasy. And because of that fantasy, I wasn't listening to my heart. I was living in my mind. And I was operating from the kleshas. The kleshas in Buddhism are the main reasons why we suffer. Ignorance is the soil of all of them. And they say that if you can eradicate ignorance, you can eradicate all suffering. And the next ones are egoism, attachment, avoidance, and fear of death. And so I try to keep the kleshas in mind within every conversation, every date with these men, so that I could not be taken away by the compulsion to create a fantasy. And I think that a lot of women and men could resonate with that idea. I think our entire media is wrapped around, I love you so much, I can't live without you. Oh, how much do you want to know how much I love you? I would do anything for you. Falling in love and being in partnership with someone, there it does require surrendering of your ego. But what you should never surrender is your heart and that voice that knows what's truly right. I talk a bit about righteousness. I don't know if I have much on the podcast, but I have a few times on social media and just with friends, and just exploring the concept of righteousness. And what I've realized, it's not about right or wrong. It's walking the right path of what you know is true to you. And so many people surrender their truth for the sake of quote unquote love. I mean, what is it really? It's a fear of being alone. It's a fear of realizing that you aren't who you thought you were. They aren't who you thought they were. And being willing to move on from that. So yeah, I just really worked on not attaching myself to these men. Owed me nothing. I owed them nothing. I mean, of course, except for just general respect and human decency. And it really created a great dynamic, but the big trick here is to not practice bypassing with non-attachment. I think a lot of people, a lot of spiritual people tend to do that. And it's like we think, oh, I have this big emotion. Oh, that means I have to bypass it. Or, I mean, not detach myself from it, right? But the truth of the matter was, like, for example, with Jay, I realized at a certain point, like, oh shit, I think I really like this guy. And I wanted to tell him, but I didn't really feel comfortable telling him. And because we just, right, we were keeping each other at arm's length. He knew I was going to Costa Rica. I knew that was like a big factor for him. And yeah, I was like, okay, I need to just detach myself from liking him. When the truth is no, my heart was telling me like, hey, you really care for this person. And that's your heart's truth. So maybe just let them know. But at the very least, let that truth be alive within you and let go of the outcome of what that could mean. Let go of what would happen on the other side of admitting that to yourself or to that other person. Unfortunately, Jay, he just disappeared. I knew it was happening on the date. Like, I could tell that he was distracted. I could tell there was something going on, and he didn't really open up to me. And what I was missing from him was a vulnerability. It was like a controlled, I'll let you get to know me, but on my terms. He was very controlled, which is very much like my ex in hindsight. So yeah, he just disappeared off the face of the earth. And sometimes I still like think, should I say something? No, because what would I gain out of that? Nothing. I'm talking about it on a podcast, and that's enough for me. Jay, if you're out there listening, I hope you're well. Oh my God. Okay. So yeah, let's get into the mind, body, and heart connection here. Because in my very last few interactions with men, and I say that because I'm isolated up and I'm sworn I'm done. I'm done with dating. I'm done with hooking up. I'm done with relationships for now. I very much feel I'm at a place where if I don't feel utmost resonance, that I'm not engaging in that way. And it helps that I live in the mountains alone. For now. Okay, so yes, I feel like I'm just constantly learning. Actually, it's within my human design chart. I am constantly learning to trust my gut, trust my first impulse. Because she is fucking spot on. And everything after that point is from my mind. And my design is that I'm not here to learn how to listen to my mind. I'm really good at listening to her. My mind is really fucking good at being listened to. She's strategic. And I say that But truly, the mind is not a person. I don't see it as a noun. I see it as a verb. The mind is something that is geared towards the action of making patterns, of recognizing and perpetuating patterns. So when I say like, oh, my mind is a rascal, or my mind is, that's not the truth here. And I want to be very careful with my words, especially as I'm in this Iboga Dieta space, because I'm rewiring that idea, that thinking my mind is an entity that is real. It's not. It's a vehicle for making meaning, and the meaning that my mind makes 95 to 99% of the time is false. It's an interpretation. That is faith. And I am actively choosing to no longer put my faith in people and ideas. Experience transcends faith. So my felt experience is my ultimate wisdom. So from my heart, and I've been thinking a lot about like, how could I further define what I mean from my heart? And I feel like words kind of convolute. There's this Rumi quote of silence is the language of God. Everything else is poor translation. And so my heart is my God within. My heart is also sort of synonymous to my gut. It's my way of truth. And so when I follow my heart, when all humans follow their heart, they could never, ever, ever go wrong. And, if you look at stories, there was just one time I read this article, somebody compiled all these stories together of women who were raped or sexually assaulted. And all of them would say that they felt at some point that they were unsafe, and they overrode that knowing. That's huge. That's that is the difference between a sovereign, safe woman and a raped, violated woman. That's like a huge, huge piece of what I'm going to get into here. So for these, last 10, 15 minutes or so, I'm going to be talking about the concept of rape, specifically something called self-rape. So trigger warning, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I recently had an Iboga journey where I realized that I was making decisions for romantic partners from my mind when my heart and my first impulse were telling me otherwise. And while I was on that vein, I also realized that I was allowing sexual desire to make decisions for me, which was also just pulling me out of heart coherence. It's like, check in with your body, but you're not an animal. You're you're a human animal. Like we're more than just, I guess, these impulsive creatures that fuck just because they feel like it. I mean, people live like that, but you're not free when you're guided by fulfilling carnal pleasure. That's actually you being at the mercy of your senses. I realized that, so in Chinese medicine, I'll do a whole podcast on it. There's a connection, a meridian that runs from the heart to the womb. And I realized mine was so disconnected. So not only was I making decisions disconnected from my heart, but I was making decisions for partners disconnected from my womb space. And it brought me to this whole other journey about my period and all that good stuff. But we're gonna stay here with this. When I realized that, if I'm being guided by my sexual desire and making decisions disconnected from my heart and my womb, my wisdom, my true knowing, then I was not only no better than an animal, but I was no better than a rapist. And the idea of the no better than an animal was kind of silly to me. But the rapist bit was, I was like, oh, fuck. And it brought me to this memory that I had on a date that I went on with this guy who claimed to be spiritual, which put my mind at ease, made me believe that I was safe. And We have a few drinks. We're getting along well. Another rule of mine is 2-drink limit. And I realize now, like, 1-drink limit. Yeah. And so we were talking about this documentary, and he was like, the classic, oh, I live close to this bar here. Do you want to go back to my place and watch this documentary? And I switched it around, and I felt a little bit like, it's time to go. But I also was really enjoying his company. And I was like, okay, but just so you know, I'm not going to have sex with you. I don't want to have sex. This is our first date. I'm just getting to know you. And he was like, yeah, of course, of course. So we go back to his place, and his TV in his living room isn't working. My heart was like, go home then. Then go home. I overrode that instinct. And he said, we could just watch it in my bedroom. Again, no. I overrode it. And of course, things escalated. You started getting handsy. We started kissing. Then he started bringing it really far, to the point where I was like, oh shit, I actually feel unsafe right now. And can you imagine how powerful that would have been for both of us, for me to be able to say that? But I realize now that it was like this people-pleasing mechanism of, I don't want to make him uncomfortable. And there was also this little weed in my mind that I watered and I allowed to grow that was saying, well, he's bigger than you. He's stronger than you. You're in his house. It's late at night. You've had a couple of drinks. It's not rape if you go along with it. And so I convinced myself to sleep with this guy. And in that iboga ceremony, I realized that that was an act of self-rape. And do I think I'm an actual like self-rapist? No. I'm not taking that and like turning it on myself like, well, I'm disgusting, I'm horrible, what the fuck. No, but I needed to adopt that term because it's very serious. I heard that and I was like, oh fuck, that's a big deal. I never ever want to do that again. Meaning I never want to override my heart, override my impulse and my instinct to get the fuck out before my mind has the control, has the reins here of my will, and is creating fucking stories and ideas and going through with things that don't feel right. And I share this, one, for any man who's listening. This is a very real experience for so many women in relationships, women on dates, like women in marriages. If it's not an enthusiastic yes, it's a fuck no. Don't engage. And two, especially for the women who are listening, because I've shared this story with a few of my friends, and nearly all of them have been like, yeah, I've done the same exact thing. And when you realize how many women have done it, it's a little bit like, oh, no big deal. Kind of, yeah, like, you know, it's not the end of the fucking world. You know, you don't deserve to go to dig a hole and then bury yourself in it and set yourself on fire until you turn to ashes. No. But it sucks that this is so common. It really is a testament to the culture that we've grown up in, and the lack of information, the lack of just grounded conversations with young girls and women. Again, like what I said from the very beginning about worth and sexuality and boundaries and respect. And you don't have to please anyone. You don't owe anyone any sort of pleasure from your body. It's your body, not theirs. And being honest about your no might be uncomfortable for a second, but I promise you it'll spare you a lot of grief and a lot of pain, in like not even just mental pain, but actual physical pain in your body. I remember when I was married and I was struggling with intimacy because I knew that he was lying and that there was something wrong, and I was having these panic attacks, and I went to a friend to let her know, and she said to me, well, you have to please your man. That is such a symptom of such a massive problem in this culture, this society, that I know I've broken myself from the spell of, and I hope that this podcast, if you haven't already had that spell broken, will do the same for you. I know for myself that I'm going to have many conversations with my children on having that heart connection and not letting the mind create stories, to understand what the mind is as a verb, as a tool. It's not reality. What's reality is your felt experience. So, yeah, that was a thing. That's the end of my notes, actually. So I feel like I have nothing else to say here. I feel a little bit like, oh, fuck, you did that. Okay. Yeah, we spoke about that. So yeah, Dharmic dating, man. Shit. A lot of lessons about myself, a lot of learning about myself, a lot of uncovering empty spaces or space beliefs that I was empty and needed validation, which often led me to overriding my instinct and outsourcing authority. Actually, like super quick, the last thing I'm going to say is everyone stop. Unless a woman keeps on dating like the bad boy, like he's literally going to jail and he's just a bad person, stop telling women to give the nice guy a chance. I had that programming in me while I was on the dating apps because like I started talking to a guy and like I just didn't feel anything for him, but he seemed like a nice guy. Fuck that shit, man. Like, if you're not into him, like on a dating profile, which I'll be honest, a lot of guys need help on their dating profile. Like put some effort in, or talk to a female friend, my dudes, on setting up a profile. Like that's going to help you immensely. But I don't know what to tell you, but I am so over the whole concept of give the nice guy a chance, because that is encouraging a woman to override her instinct. If she's not attracted to him, she's not attracted to him. If he's not doing it, he's not doing it. Nice is not a virtue. And if anything, nice is just a mask for people pleasing. Okay. That's my final rant on dating and all that good stuff. If you would like to reach out to talk about these things, I think these conversations need to be had more than ever. If you would like to work with me, if you are stepping into your own school of whispers and would like, to not do it alone, check out the show notes. You can find my information. And official announcement, I have a newsletter now. I personally kind of hate newsletters. I feel like they're just junk mail. So how I'm going to treat this is just like slow media that's worth sharing. Once a month, I'll be sharing announcements on retreats, workshops, podcast. I'll also be sharing what feels relevant from a Chinese medicine perspective on the month or the season that we're in, relevant herbs, acupuncture points. It's a work in progress, so it'll shift and mold, but it's just not going to be a bunch of useless information or products that you don't need. That's what really gets me about newsletters. So if you would like to sign up for my newsletter and receive a free PDF ebook guide on the 5-element theory, which I will get into on a podcast in the very, very near future, you can find all that information in the show notes. All right, it's so good to be back, my friend. I'm sending you so much love from behind this mic, and I know I'll be feeling your energy the next time I am yapping about my life behind this mic.